There are a lot of RussiaGate operatives who seem a little bit worried, a little bit panicked, specifically about Kash Patel. There is a poetry to this. There is a poetry to Peter Navarro being named one of President Trump's chief economic advisors, Peter Navarro, who just recently got out of a prison cell. By the way, a political prisoner. We don't normally put people in prison for things like that, or people like Steve Bannon. They tried to put President Trump in prison. As you know, I think they'd still like to do that, or they're dropping charges because they're frightened and they want it all to go away, the thing they started. But in the case of the people who lied about RussiaGate, the intelligence service officials who lied, the FBI who lied, the DOJ who lied, the Mockingbird media who lied, there's a lot of people sort of freaking out about Kash Patel because the poetry is this. Kash Patel, having been a national security bigwig, a congressional bigwig, he's tried 60 cases in front of a jury. He understands the workings of national security as good as anybody in that realm. He also was victimized by the FBI because when he was running helping to run the RussiaGate investigation for Congress, the FBI took your money and your tools and your employees and they aimed them at Kash Patel. He found this out 5 years after the fact that a Google lawyer called him and said, hey, by the way, we can tell you this now. The DOJ came at us with secret subpoenas on hush-hush orders so that we could look into everything you were doing. And Kash Patel has said, I'm a prosecutor. I know how these things work. They didn't just go to Google. They went to everybody else. So that's a legitimate constitutional crisis. No one knows the working of a corrupt machine like the people who've been attacked by the corrupt machine. And no one can come in and unwire the corruption like a guy who has had the corruption wrapped around his neck and got away. Kash Patel is also saying things that flat worry these people because he's talking about letting us see our property. I mean, you can't go around and let the people see their property. Things like the Kennedy report, all of it. The Epstein report, all of it. He says there needs to be a task force that immediately starts opening up these records on day one. And you have a series of intelligence operatives and media people, same thing in some instances, just panicking because we can't let people see what we've been doing to them if they ever find that out. If you found out years after the fact that you didn't need to have that surgery and you learned that, wait a minute, I could have been over this in 3 or 4 days. And instead, you had your body cut open. You were in bed for 3 or 4 or 5 days on those terrible painkillers that get you nauseous and you can't go to the bathroom. They're horrible. And then there's the months and months and months of physical therapy and recovery and the painful stretching. And you can't move like you used to move. And your shoulder mechanics or knee mechanics never really come back. Not to mention the cost, the time off of work, etc. If you found out that you could have solved that with a visit to a beautiful resort in Puerto Vallarta, Mexico, in a 3 or 4 day visit, never had to have that surgery at all, how would you feel? Well, if it's bad, if you are facing surgery, how would you like to never have to face that regret? It is very, very possible that the surgery you're being told you must have is not a must. It's an option. Another option might be the ethically gathered stem cells from Renew.Healthcare in Mexico. Never has anything to do with abortion. They won't touch anything with abortion. The strain of cells I've used twice in my body have never been exposed to the modified RNA injections. So you can find out if they can help you avoid the surgery and if you've had to have the surgery or got talked into it, help you recover more quickly. They've even had incredible results with people who've suffered traumatic brain injuries from car crashes and horse accidents and jumping out of perfectly good airplanes. So go to Renew.Healthcare. It's RENUE.Healthcare, RENUE.Healthcare. Tell them you're a member of the Todd Herman Show audience, and they will tell you if they can help you. It's RENUE.Healthcare. MSNBC had a meltdown over Kash Patel.
Is there enough backbone there, do you think, to defeat multiple nominees?
I don't know. I think it's possible. And look, we saw it with Matt Gaetz already, and I think that I was actually surprised how quickly that happened. To me, Kash Patel and I don't say this lightly, is the most dangerous nominee that we've seen yet to our democracy. I mean, you might think.
Remember the other day we said our democracy, and then the great guy at Newsbusters changed it to our bureaucracy. That's what he means.
That having Pete Hegseth running the military is a greater level of danger because of his lack of experience, or Tulsi Gabbard at intelligence. But just as far as the threats to democracy that we were warning up about before the election, and Kash Patel was a key player inside the Trump White House, pushing for and orchestrating the coup attempt in 2020.
Pushing for and orchestrating the unarmed coup attempt where they forgot to bring guns, where President Trump said, let's provide more National Guard to keep the Capitol safe. And Nancy Pelosi and her dear, dear friend Mitch McConnell said no. Not to mention General White Rage, waiting until 6 or 7 p.m. to agree to that. That's all ancient, well-documented history. But man, yeah, that orchestrating that coup, that Kash Patel, he's a dangerous thinker. Let's have a coup, but no guns.
He was trying to completely take control of the Justice Department at the time. He was Trump's top lieutenant who was willing to do anything and advance any lie in service of his attempt to overturn that last election.
The attempt to overturn the last election by slowing down the ceremonial counting of votes. Because it's a ceremonial count. It doesn't need to be done there.
There were many people that were Trump appointees in 2020 who were staying around and saying no, like standing in the breach and saying no, not Kash Patel. Like you cannot put Kash Patel as a temporary leader of the Justice Department, et cetera. These are Trump appointees. And so, I will see what happens in the Senate. But if Trump had people around him that were quasi-loyalists that were like, that guy's too far, who knows what that'll mean for the Senate.
Did you remember Eric Holder, Barack Obama's very dear friends, who called Obama called him his wingman? And do you remember Project Gun Runner? No, let's let the cartels buy guns in America, walk them across the border, and use them in crimes. Let's make it illegal. Let's go to gun source and say, no, you're going to provide this stuff. Let's have the ATF come and say, hey, some people are going to buy guns and you're going to let them. Or Merrick Garland. I mean, honestly, the panic. What could Kash Patel find out about the media? What do you think the FBI might be doing with the media? If he got in and said, let's open things up, here's the first thing Kash Patel should open up. Every conversation between everybody at the FBI and anyone in the media. I'm sure there might be some things on active investigations that aren't active anymore. It might disclose sources and methods. Might be some ways to block that. I don't want FBI agents in the street who are actually trying to help the country being put at risk. You could blank those names out. I'd like to know exactly what the FBI told the media to say. This is Jake Sullivan, and Jake was Team Hillary, one of her key sort of henchman type people. And this guy can look at you in the eye and explain that the Justice Department, the FBI, those directors are supposed to be something.
I do want to ask you about President-elect Trump's decision to nominate Kash Patel as FBI director. I mean, as you know, he's a fierce Trump loyalist. He has vowed to go after the deep state. You have worked closely with the current FBI director. What do you think it would mean to have Kash Patel in that role?
Well, look, I'm not going to speak to President-elect Trump's nominees. I'll let him speak for his own rationale. What I will say is how the Biden administration has approached the position of FBI director. We inherited Director Chris Wray, who has done a very good job in the role, from President-elect Trump, who appointed him to a 10-year term. And what makes the FBI director different from most other nominees is they're not just appointed for one term of a president. They're appointed for enough time to last past 2 terms of a president because they're supposed to be insulated from politics.
They're supposed to be insulated from politics, like Bobby Mueller, like the FBI officials who knew that the Russia dossier came from Hillary Clinton Oppo, laundered through a disgraced law firm, and a former group of reporters who've set up an Oppo for hire operation, Fusion GPS. Right. Totally insulated from politics. What could be found out about Jake Sullivan? Well, Jake Sullivan, I think, worked at the State Department. Hillary Clinton did not give Ambassador Christopher Stevens her direct line, so he couldn't call her when he was about to be murdered in Benghazi, but Ben Affleck had it. He had a direct line to Hillary. It'd be interesting to find out who else had a direct line. Maybe these are things that someone who's committed to transparency would actually find out. There's a reason why the Mockingbird media and intelligence services hate Twitter now that Elon Musk has made it somewhat better for free speech, maybe 80% better. It's because of people like Insurrection Barbie. I don't know who she is either. I know she has 732,000 followers or 753,000. It's always darkest just before the storm. Married, says in all caps, no DMs. But then again, you're using a cartoon for your face. You might be a dude. Kind of curious about that. Not. So Insurrection Barbie answered Jamie Raskin because Jamie Raskin said he couldn't come up with a single instance of the FBI or DOJ being weaponized.
Issues inside the FBI around politicization, as many who voted for Donald Trump seem to say?
Well, undoubtedly, if you look at it historically, for example, during the COINTELPRO period, the FBI really was weaponized against Dr. King and the civil rights movement and the peace movement. There was, decades of the FBI being basically used as a political instrument. There's an interesting book about that, about J. Edgar Hoover by Beverly Gage, and people can look at. And so I haven't seen what the proof is that the FBI has been weaponized against a political party or the Department of Justice. Of course, this Department of Justice has brought charges against a Democratic U.S. Senator.
They brought charges against Senator Menendez, one. And they did that, I think, as window dressing to be able to defend what they did against President Trump. So here's why the Mockingbird media hates Elon Musk's Twitter is because people or accounts, I don't know if this is a real person, if it's a series of people, under the account Insurrection Barbie. The FBI went after a surgeon who blew the whistle in a hospital that was illegally performing child castration on minors and lied about it. Instead of going after the doctors performing double mastectomies illegally, they brought charges against the whistleblower surgeon. When parents were unhappy about their children being masked and forced to learn critical race theory and all sorts of insane gender insanity, the teachers union wrote a letter to the DOJ, and those parents were put on a terrorist watch list. And the way they did that, by the way, was if you complained at a meeting and the school board told you to leave and you refused, you were trespassing, and therefore you could be a domestic terrorist. 2,000 rioters had their felony charges dropped after the BLM protests after Merrick Garland was appointed as AG. Not one nonviolent protester from JSX has had their charges dropped. This is all from Insurrection Barbie. According to the FBI's own IG, FBI brass retaliated against whistleblowers by pulling their security clearances. Only 4 people who violently attacked pro-life centers have actually been sentenced to prison time, despite the fact that over 88 pro-life centers were firebombed or vandalized and 430 churches were vandalized. No one has been held accountable. On the flip side, 26 people, some as old as 85 years old, have been sentenced to prison time for peacefully protesting outside abortion clinics. Joe Biden stole classified documents for years and nothing happened. They accused Donald Trump of stealing classified documents and raided his house with a SWAT team that was cleared to use lethal force. These are just a few examples of how corrupt, partisan, and weaponized the DOJ has become. It's a reason that they can't stand platforms like this, because it's very difficult for them to contain truth like that. In fact, it's impossible for them to contain truth because God himself is truth. I'm not saying that God is on the side of the Republican Party. I'm saying God is truth, and you're not going to be able to cancel the truth. The truth is this: the people in the intelligence services should be afraid of Kash Patel, because I think Kash Patel is very, very committed to opening the doors, and nothing sometimes serves as a better disinfectant than a whole great heaving hoop helping massive sunshine. Great disinfectant and designed by God.